set,
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast.
So sad.
You sound
You're
terrible.
so dramatic.
How did you
dude.
get
I
worse
know.
between talking to us 10 seconds
dramatic.
Oh my god.
ago? You got worse.
I wasn't even doing that. I swear that's what it.
Laying it on.
You want to try
back
it?
here.
And yeah, what do you want to do?
Go ahead, try it again.
And
well,
let me get all spunky about it.
And
Oh my god, it hurts,
I was trying to help you.
dude. I feel so much worse than the last show.
Oh my god.
So much worse.
That's how it is when you get a cold.
Yeah, now you just
Later
made it
it
worse by
gets-
me doing all those ands.
The Grim Reaper's
Get
waiting
over
for him
it.
in the
I'm
corner
Rich
over
Dotson.
here.
I'm Matt O'Hara.
I'm Garret Price.
Jared, come on.
Hey, I'm Jared.
God, we're trying to help
Wackerly.
this dude out, man. Come on.
Can we get into this mock draft round 2? I can't talk.
Yeah.
I'm only talking about my players.
All right,
That's it.
obviously,
That's
if you're just popping on this show and you didn't hear the first one, go back and listen to round 1. It's not going to make as much sense if you just go right into round 2, right?
Although it's different now because this used to be regular episode and then Nerd Herd episode. So there was like a clear line. Now it might be a little bit more confusing because one's going to come
Right.
out Wednesday. But if you missed it,
I know.
this is the one at the top of your feed.
That's what I'm saying.
Can we get a recap?
We should recap.
It'll clearly
Round
say
one?
part 2.
Come on. No. Make him go back and listen.
No, give me a recap of round
Fine.
1.
What?
Stop talking, Rich.
Yeah, you talk too much.
And
Should I do the recap?
Yeah, do the
Recap
recap.
it.
All right.
Recap it.
All right. Caleb Williams went 1-1. Then Marvin Harrison, Drake May, Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, the interesting quarterback out of LSU. Then Brock Bowers, Rome Adunze. Am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
Thank you. Michael Penix Jr., Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas Jr., Trevion Henderson, and then rounded off with Troy Franklin, wide receiver from Oregon.
There we go. Recapping the first round.
So that was a quick recap. If you want the in-depth version, go back to the first round. We did a whole show about it. It was great. So here we are.
we did a whole show about it. It was great.
The second round's kicking off here. I am going back to the well here with the quarterbacks. I'm going Bo Nix, Oregon. Obviously this was a guy that started off his career at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
He did 3 years of service there before transferring to Oregon for the past 2 seasons. Very interesting guy. He was second in the nation in yards, 4,500, a little over 4,500. I believe he led the league or the whole nation in touchdowns, 45 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. So
Are we still recording this one like video?
Yes.
just
Okay.
This is so dramatic.
just crazy stats. Great.
Rich, so dramatic. Dude, oh, man. I'm the same way when I'm sick. My wife's like, you are such a baby.
That's just a guy thing. I'm the
I
same
know.
exact way. But anyway, back to the stats. 77% completion percentage, over 77. So just crazy stats he's putting up here, right? And the name of the game is to put up crazy stats, right? We're playing fantasy football.
Playing fantasy football.
I honestly,
Give me the
I
numbers.
don't know what the draft capital is going to be, right?
He's another one of those quarterbacks that I just have a hard, and this is there is no like great analysis around this. I'm just simply saying every time I watch him play, I always feel disappointed. Like I don't feel like the numbers and the production match
What
what
you
I
see.
see when I watch him play. Like I'm always underwhelmed. And maybe,
College will do that to you.
yeah, and he's like 28 years old, so maybe that has something to do with it
What's
as well.
his real age?
I think he's 24.
Okay.
I think he is 24. I think he's actually older than Penix. If not, he's like only a few months younger.
Sure.
Like they're both very old prospects. But look, he on numbers alone, he should absolutely be
He's 23.
23, but he'll be 24 before.
And it's
February is
yeah.
like that.
It's
Yeah.
Penix and him that are leading the nation. It's Penix.
Right.
Penix number 1, and he's number 2. He's got the edge as far as touchdowns. He's got 10 more than Penix. So they're very close as far as that. They know the college game well, right? I mean, they've been around
do.
it for a while.
Been around the block. But Penix beat him head to head twice.
Yeah.
And and it's not only a quarterback game, but that makes me
Right, lean.
towards Penix
Sure,
in that type of situation.
And Penix went, the 8th pick in the first round. I don't think it's crazy to think Bo Nix will be around in this range, right? As far as right now.
No. I think he is a day 2 quarterback.
I was going to say he's probably a second round guy, maybe even third, depending on
good athlete,
how the thing falls. Yeah, exactly. He's had some rushing.
He's
upside.
a better athlete than Michael Penix as far as his rushing ability and making plays outside the pocket. So it sounds like I'm saying there's no way Bo Nix should be 201. I'm not saying.
Listen, I watched one game of him and like what I saw casually of
Sure.
Oregon throughout the season, but I watched one game of him and there was a couple times I'm like, what the hell was that throw? Like,
yeah,
like on a screen pass, he double pumped and threw a pass that just got his wide receiver killed, like at the line of scrimmage. Like, dude, you just can't do that. Like, if you're gonna double pump it, just throw it over. Just throw it over the guy's head. You know what I mean? Just get rid of it, throw it over his head, and just eat it. Don't get your guy killed. So I think there is probably some things that I'm going to see when I do our deep dive that are going to concern me. So maybe he doesn't end up going this high. But it's the premium position. There's never enough of them, and depending on where he gets drafted in the NFL, he could very well be, getting drafted right around the second round. If not, maybe even a little higher, a skosh higher, if he's like a high second round draft pick. Somebody falls in love with him. So, Rich, you are on the clock.
I'm taking a wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka, out of Ohio
Easy
State.
for you to say.
6'1", 205 pounds.
Hasn't declared. Another guy that has not declared
yet. But somebody, again, I've watched all his film throughout the years, and a very solid receiver, real fast, really good route runner.
I feel like, personally, having watched all the same stuff that you have, I wouldn't be upset if he went back to school and kind of had his 1 year to shine as the guy. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Him and like Jeremiah Smith, like tutor that way.
I think he should go back to school.
Yeah. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just a very good route runner, very fast guy, wins by getting separation a lot. Kind of reminds me of Chris Olave, former Ohio State receiver there.
I think he's just a lot bigger and thicker than
definitely.
Olave.
Yep.
Definitely bigger.
Yeah.
6'1", 205. You was really expecting him to take a big breakout year this year with Marvin being opposite of Marvin Harrison Jr., but really didn't.
Nope.
Honestly, kind of like a couple of receivers, but kind of took a step back somewhat overall production wise, but still wins by getting open. Had some drops, more drops than I would like this year.
I agree.
I don't know. I want to dig deep on the tape of that and see like how many of those were concentration drops and how many weren't concentration drops.
And that's why I almost want to see him as, instead of him being a secondary piece to Marvin Harrison, I want to see what he can do as maybe he's the number one target. He's getting involved early. He's, you know what I mean? Like he's in that game plan. And some wide receivers, if they're not involved early, their mind drifts a little bit. Maybe they're not as sharp as they should be when that first ball comes. And then they drop it. And then it's in their head, you know what I mean? Then they drop maybe another ball later on, and it's one of those things where it just kind of snowballs on him a little bit. So I wouldn't mind him going back. I would understand if he left, because having seen what we saw in that bowl game with what's to come, if Aaron Nolan is not the man there at Ohio State next year, it's looking a little bleak as far as the passing game for the Buckeyes. So I guess I wouldn't fault him if he wanted to leave that situation, but I still wouldn't mind just seeing him one more year, maybe of some seasoning.
He definitely has a skill set where he could come out and be a solid NFL receiver. And that's the thing. Like he's fallen back to the middle of the pack of this wide receiver class. It's so deep. So now he could possibly go back to be like a higher draft pick and make more money that way. But he's got a lot of good tangibles about him. Like I said, I like his route running. I really like his speed. I like him with the ball in his hands as well. Knows how to get open, which is really important. For the production. Doesn't block very well. I said the hands can be a concern at times. Yeah. And I wasn't really overly concerned with his hands really until this year.
Right.
Honestly. I really did expect him. I honestly looked at him as coming in this year. I was like, oh, wow, Marvin Harrison will be the first receiver off the board and Emeka be the number 2 receiver off the board.
There was definitely going into the season that thought.
That's how I looked at him coming into this season, and a lot of that changed. Again, Kyle McCord wasn't anything to write home about at quarterback for Ohio State either there, but Emeka didn't do a lot of things to help him. So at this point, the high second round, he definitely has the upside for me if he does declare where like this is a player I do want to gamble on.
He was another guy that's been just like Travion, like he was dinged up all year. It just came out that he was dealing with some ankle issues, and I think he had surgery on it early in the season and played through it. But
is that what he missed time for? Like, cause he missed a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah. He underwent tightrope surgery after he injured his ankle earlier in the year. But I think later in the season, like the last couple games, even though he was a stinker versus Missouri, he still looked kind of like his old self that we saw in the past. So it'd probably serve him best to come back to Ohio State, but we'll see what he does.
Yeah, especially with how cluttered this class has become.
Mm-hmm.
It's somebody that maybe at one point was considered to have, round one draft capital. Now, just because of the mass volume of receivers, might slip into mid to even late round 2.
Yeah, or 3.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. So I think especially with how lucrative the NIL stuff can be now, and he hasn't beat Michigan yet. And that's part of the reason that a lot of these Ohio State guys, that went from beating them every single year to now having lost 3 straight. These guys are now going to leave school without having beaten Michigan. And as silly as that sounds to everyone else in the country,
yeah, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So if you can still get paid similar to a first or second round player with NIL stuff,
which is crazy,
and have another opportunity to get better, improve your draft stock, like it does kind of make sense. So, and I think that's why, even though we all believe Marvin Harrison will come out, that was part of the reasoning why Marvin Harrison was considering
coming back,
maybe not coming to the NFL. So
I think all the NIL money is starting to get a little like blown out of proportion on like what's actually being paid.
Sure.
So I think earlier it was reported like the Ohio State's going to offer Marvin Harrison $20 million to come back, which there's no way. Top of the line quarterbacks are reportedly getting like $3 million, $2 million. So there's no way they're going to pay a wide receiver $20 million. So comparing it to like first round or second round money, I think's getting blown out a little out of proportion. And it's not guaranteed. Some of these guys aren't getting paid.
Sure.
Like they're getting
not
told
regulated.
They're gonna get this money.
I've heard a lot of
There's
people
no
are getting
regulation.
paid.
Yeah, there's no regulation. The dude from Texas A&M, Evan Stewart, one of the top wide receivers in next year's class, he's transferring to Texas A&M. He said, I never got a dime of what I was told I was going to get. It's just a mess, dude.
Yeah.
The NCAA they need to figure out a system.
There needs to be some sort of regulation for sure.
Yeah, I think
it's crazy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that real quick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we'll see how all of that plays out.
All right, got to talk about a little bit Underdog here. A little new thing that going on. Underdog Fantasy Pick'em Champions. Dynasty Nerds in Alabama, Tennessee, Wyoming, and Mississippi. This one is for you. Underdog has launched a brand new game called Pick'em Champions just for you. It's a new player versus player Pick'em game that's all about strategy and fun. Choose 2 to 5 players, place your entry, and if your pick hits, you win big. When new users deposit $10 or more on Underdog, they will match your deposit up to $100. You will also receive a free promo code for us for a free year of the Dynasty GM and the Nerd Herd Bundle. And what a great time to have it, because that gives you access to all our tools, all our rookie breakdown content, the Nerd Score, and the Dynasty Nerds Film Room, and everything else we offer for the Dynasty Nerds memberships. And for our current Nerd Herd members, we'll give you that cool, great, most comfortable shirt in the world, guaranteed to increase your high five intake, the Dynasty Nerds t-shirt, waiting just for you. So click the link in the podcast description, head to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code NERDS, and deposit at least $10 to start playing their new Pick'em Championship game. Then be on the lookout for your Dynasty Nerds promo code within 24 hours of your deposit. New members only. Again, that is promo code NERDS at Underdog Fantasy.
I ended up being at 2-3, and I had a few different directions that I wanted to go. I went here a little bit off the board. I went with Tez Walker, wide receiver from North Carolina. So, I'm pairing him up with my Drake May pick from earlier. Tez Walker's had a really, really interesting career. So he started off at North Carolina. But because of all of the COVID stuff, and there was just a lot of things going on, and just a lot of players do this, he ended up deciding to transfer because he wanted to get to play and play right away. And he went to Kent State for 2 years. Went to Kent State, and he ended up having a really good second year there. The first year he didn't do much, but the second year at Kent State, he had a 900-yard season with 11 touchdowns. Transferred back to North Carolina this past season. But it was a weird thing. So the NCAA, for whatever reason, with all of these people that they let transfer and move around, they said he was going to be ineligible for the 2023 season because this was his second transfer, even though there were a lot of other players that did it. So Mac Brown came out and like blasted the NCAA. Then all of a sudden, like 5 weeks into the season, NCAA is like, yeah, he can play now. He's good. Just out of the blue. So really,
Wacky.
really weird season for him. But came out in only 8 games, put up nearly 700 yards and 7 touchdowns in those 8 games. Looked really good going up and getting the football. And these numbers would have been even better. He actually took a brutal hit at one point during the season at the end of October there that kind of messed him up a little bit. But really, really talented receiver, can make some really big plays. So there's not as much film around him, but rumor has it that he's the type of guy that could be a very solid second round pick in the NFL draft. So curious to see once I dig deeper into his tape, once there's more information out on him. He's one of the bigger unknowns kind of in this draft, but I really like what I've seen out of him so far. 6'3", 175 pounds.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about him, so that's all good and all kind of news to me on Tez Walker.
Yeah, it was a really weird situation because I didn't even know anything about him until all of a sudden I heard he was eligible, and I was like, wait, who's this guy that everybody's excited about now? So because apparently preseason he was projected to be the number 1 guy for Drake May and all of these, we like Keon Coleman kind of really elevated his stock.
Absolutely,
the same kind of thing for Tez Walker. And when he played and when he was healthy, he looked really good. So we'll have to see kind of how all this comes together.
We'll get a good look at him at the Senior Bowl. He's attending the Senior Bowl, so I'm
excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah, so I am on the clock here at 2:04, and I'm going to go with our, believe it or not, our second running back off the board, Blake Corum. And I think everyone probably at this point has heard of Blake Corum, all-time rushing touchdown leader at Michigan. He's 5'8", 213, so he's got some mass, even though he's not, even though he's short. I think he carries it well. He breaks tackles extremely well. He's older. He's 23 already, so he's an older player in this class. I really like his ability to make people miss. I think he has really good vision. I do not know if I'm actually going to have him at RB2. Obviously, this is extremely early.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Michigan's offensive line is really good.
Really, really good.
I mean, did they win the Joe Moore Award? I think they did.
They might have. I didn't hear who
I can't
won.
remember.
Is that best?
I need to look.
Best offensive line?
Yeah, best offensive line in the country.
I mean, they
look like it.
They are very good.
Yeah, on both sides of the ball. But had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He had 25 touchdowns this year rushing. Can catch the ball. Like I said, make people miss. I mean, he can really do everything that you want.
He runs with good patience, too.
Yeah,
that's
he
another
does.
part of his game that's probably underrated.
He's not like the sexy back. Like, he's not extremely fast. He's not extremely twitchy like Gibbs or something, but he just gets the job done earlier, like Rich said.
I said in the first show, he reminds me a lot of like a Kyron Williams.
Yeah.
Which
and he's
would
tough
which
as
would have
hell.
sounded bad last year, but now, looking at what Kyron Williams is doing, obviously that's a pretty big compliment.
You just hear so many good things about his character, too.
Great leader.
Just a team guy. So I really like what I see. I took him now because I did break him down last year for the Nerd Score, and I was impressed with what I saw then, and he had a better season now. So looking forward to diving in and seeing more of him, but I do like what I see.
Yeah, can't blame you there.
Yeah, it's a nice pick. Moving on to the 5th pick, I'm dipping my toe back into this Michigan well. I'm going to go J.J. McCarthy. I know he doesn't have, like, sexy numbers, right? He's not one of these guys that's going to get you a ton of yards or a ton of touchdowns, but he's a game manager, right? He does everything that they're asking him to do. I'm not sure if he's got more.
It does feel like he has more traits, but they're winning by running the football.
Right.
Extremely athletic.
But, yeah, he's a good athlete. He's made some big-time throws in some big-time moments.
Do you think he goes back?
I think there's a strong chance that he could go back. But if you win the national championship, you go out beating Ohio State, like there's not much more to accomplish. unless people are saying, hey, we would take you in the 3rd round right now.
Yeah.
But if you refine these things, we'll take you in the 1st. That, I think, would be the only thing that would change his mind. So we'll have to see what happens in this national championship.
I think Michigan's looking forward to an orgy.
A what?
An orgy.
Wait, what?
Of what kind?
I'm just kidding. Their backup quarterback's name is Orgy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I forgot completely about that. That is accurate, though.
He played a little bit the other night.
He did. I was really thrown off.
RG3 had jokes about that.
I expected that out of
Rich did not like that at all.
I was dying.
He's like, look, those are my jokes. Don't steal my jokes.
Somebody has to
Come to my
Sam.
funeral.
Hey, I
That's
got
all.
to
Rich can't Sam.
my Richisms.
So anyway, I mean, this pick right here in the middle of the 2nd round, might he be something? Sure. Might he be nothing? I don't know. Is he a guy that's a Brock Purdy-esque guy who just doesn't make mistakes? If he gets in the right system, can really thrive in the NFL? Who knows? I mean, he doesn't make mistakes. He has a tendency to take care of the ball. A 22-4 interception, TD to interception ratio is pretty decent, and he completed 73% of his passes. So I think he's worth taking a look here. I think he's a guy that has potential. How about that in the NFL to be a starter?
I think he could be a 2nd round pick, possibly.
Yeah.
Especially when he starts testing. I know he's going to test really well.
Yeah, he's a good athlete.
He's got good size too.
And that's the thing. You talk a lot about him being a game manager, which is fair based on what Michigan has asked him to do.
Right.
So I think that's a very fair thing. But I think compared to a lot of these guys, he is somebody that seemingly has a lot of untapped potential to be a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
He does have a strong arm. He is a good athlete. That would put him in line with some of the top tier guys.
That's why I try to kind of mention him in the same breath
Right.
as a Brock Purdy who's just super efficient, operating at a crazy high level and producing from a fantasy perspective. I mean, not seemingly out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The guy came out of total obscurity. So I think J.J. McCarthy has, probably just as much, if not more, upside coming into the NFL than a guy like that. So
I would agree with that. All right, Rich.
I'm going to take an interesting prospect here. Running back out of Wisconsin, Braylon Allen. Big kid, 6'2", 245 pounds. Real young, only going to be 20 years old.
Yeah.
Super.
Coming here, he'll turn 20 in January.
Yeah, he's 19 at the moment.
Yeah, January 20th he turns. So he'll be the youngest prospect in this draft, essentially. But he's a big kid.
Has he declared?
He has declared.
Yeah, he's declared.
Good.
So real big, pile moving kind of kid, but real good balance for his size too. He's really good balance. Shows a little bit of shiftiness in open field for his size. That looks pretty good. He's a can in the passing game. I wouldn't call him a pass catcher running back, but he's definitely a can guy for easy screens, dump off
And
that.
you're saying he can do that.
Yeah,
for the people that can't understand what you're saying.
He's not out there and run routes for you. So he's got some of that. When he gets the ball and he gets behind the line, when he gets past the line of scrimmage, he's a solid runner.
Mm-hmm.
His vision's pretty good out there, but he's not fast at all. With that, he has no start-stop ability whatsoever. It's once he goes, that's it.
Head of steam. Is he head of steam type of guy?
Yeah. So
245 pounds.
So behind,
makes sense.
With that, there's some worry about that at the NFL level.
Sure.
Not being able to do things like that. He's when you think of a player of his size, you think of a guy like AJ Dillon, but AJ Dillon had quicker feet. So AJ Dillon was able to maneuver better behind the line of scrimmage. He doesn't do that, but for a guy of his size and his vision,
He
and
actually
his contact
uses
balance,
his power more than AJ Dillon.
Yes, he with his contact balance and his size and his vision, he could definitely excel at the next level in the right system.
He kind of strikes me as you use this term a lot, Rich, and I think it's a good one for Allen, at least at the moment. Still haven't done my deep dive. But at the moment, he seems like a guy that's going to help an NFL team more than he's going to help your fantasy team. He strikes me as a guy that's going to get 15 carries a game for 67 yards.
67 hard,
and you're really hoping he got a touchdown.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't get a touchdown, you got 6.7 points.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy he reminds me
If
of.
you could find that David Montgomery role, even that, the guy who's going to score a lot, that role, the guy that has a running back on the team, Miami next year. First, it was him and Devon Achane, right?
Yeah,
going
so
in
he
there.
fills in for Jeff Wilson, basically.
Brandon Jacobs.
Yeah, some along those like when Brandon Jacobs had a 1 year where he scored like 13 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be
Garrett
interesting.
Blunt.
I want to see where he gets drafted and what offense he gets into. But there is a role there for him to find success
For sure.
Definitely at the NFL level, but more at the fantasy level. I was just looking at running backs here to grab a running back to get on my roster and talk about. And he's somebody I know, like with his youth and his size. And like I said, in the way he's able to move in the open field at that size, it's intriguing to me.
Yeah, he's definitely an intriguing prospect. The youth is huge because even if he takes 2 years to develop, he's like normal age for most other running backs.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who reclassified when he came out.
Yeah. So
skipped his last year of high school.
Very, very, very interesting player.
Yeah, not going to break off a home run threat. He's not overly athletic.
Is he a guy that could shed some lbs? Could he be like
He got down to he's
Like Lev Bell.
like
he started at
Bell?
11% body fat. He's at 8% body fat now.
He's not a plotter
So he's
by
not,
any means.
He's not. He doesn't
No.
have like baby fat to lose. Really, he's
No,
just
he's-
a big
he's just
muscular
yoked.
friggin' dude. All right.
He's just yoked.
All right.
Interesting prospect. Braylon
Interesting.
Allen,
I'm excited.
Wisconsin.
He's one of the ones I'm looking forward to more so than a lot of other guys to break down because I could see me going strongly one way or another, being like all in on him because I love good downhill runners. But I could also see myself being like, yeah, I just don't want him on my team. Like I just don't see the fantasy value.
Can we get him to go vegan for like a month?
Yeah.
Get him down to like 227.
Yeah.
And maybe get some
They
quicks.
don't get hurt.
Get him some quicks and then beef him back.
Dude, I swear,
Get him
it's
back
like
on the
2 years
beef.
ago, I saw some stat. Every NFL player that ended up going like vegan ended up getting like hurt.
Then Cam Newton.
Cam Newton did it.
Yeah.
There was a couple other guys right around that same time.
Sorry, vegans.
I just want to lean him down a little bit. That's all.
You can go back. You can
Nothing
go back.
permanent. Nothing permanent,
Eat
man.
a steak.
Yeah. Nothing permanent.
All right. I'm going to go with Trey Benson here. Trey Benson, it kind of was similar to
Position?
running back,
School.
6'1", 211 pounds, currently from Florida State, originated out of Oregon, transferred 2 years into his career. As a junior, had a nice little season, over 900 yards for Florida State there. But the problem was year two didn't really like his numbers are pretty similar. He had 990 yards as a sophomore. It was his third season as a sophomore. Only had 906 this year. 9 touchdowns. Yep, that's a 14 this year. But he was a little inconsistent. And there would be moments where I would watch Trey Benson and I was like, man, he might be the best back in this class. And then there would be other moments where I'm like, he's a day 3 guy. Not interested.
Same, dude.
And it was just a lot of, but that was Florida State this year with a lot of their offensive stuff. So it's really hard to place here, but just on the moments where I would see him make certain moves, especially at his size. I mean, 6'1", and so even if he comes in at 6 foot, I'm good with that. I would almost rather him be 6 foot.
Yeah, 5'11", 6 foot. That's what you're looking for.
That's pretty ideal range there. So, and he could actually put on some more weight when you have that kind of frame. He's almost closer to a wide receiver build at 6'1", 211 than he is at a traditional running back build. Blake Corum's at 213 at freaking 5'8". Yeah. So he could put on some more weight, but you saw some good power from him at times, but you also saw some good elusiveness from him. The inconsistencies are there, but the upside is there. And so on the upside alone at this point, midway through the second round, he's the type of guy that I want to take a chance on and see maybe he's the back in this class that kind of emerges.
He's Garrett's type.
He is.
He had a catastrophic knee injury. In 2020, he tore his ACL, MCL, and his
So
meniscus.
true.
That almost ended his career.
I love all these hurt guys.
So, I mean, he's right up there with Tajay Spears, Dobbins, Javonte. Is your guy.
That's true. If you've had a catastrophic knee injury, you're right for me.
Or if you haven't, you're going to
Dallas.
have one.
DJ Dallas hasn't, right?
No, he hasn't.
Don't put
He hasn't.
that juju
If
on.
it happens,
Sorry, DJ.
If it happens tomorrow,
My bad, man. Jeez, you're right.
man. So I'm going with Trey Benson.
All right, man. I don't know much about him. I do like the fact that he's had a catastrophic knee injury as well. So I'm
Is he related to Cedric Benson?
I'm on it.
I don't think he has any relation to Cedric Benson, as far as I know. Do you know anything about that?
I don't think so. I haven't
seen
heard
anything about that.
I'm trying to think of Cedric Benson. I just remember him crying when he got drafted. So like rivers of tears.
Yeah.
It can be an emotional time.
Hey, guys, let me tell you about our friends at Sleeper. Guess what? Our app the mini is live on Sleeper right now. The Dynasty GM,
pretty.
you can use the analyzer, you can use the trade calculator, and my favorite thing is the inbox, right? Where all your trades from all your Sleeper leagues are right there. You can actually push trades through the actual Sleeper app. And right now, we couldn't be more excited to be partners with them. And right now, if you don't know, they are doing DFS. And I know how many people that play Dynasty play DFS as well. And right now, there's not a better place to play DFS than Sleeper. They're offering up to 100 times your entry, the highest payout in the whole DFS market right now. You can track your fantasy players and your Sleeper picks in real time. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live in-game, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats, and only on Sleeper you can get up to 100 times your payout. You can share with your friends and get rewarded together. Make sure you use that promo code NERD so our friends know that friends sent them their way. And get your deposit match and have a good time. You'll have all your DFS, all of your fantasy leagues, and now even a Dynasty GM in one spot. It is fully operational inside Sleeper right now. And then when you're a Nerd Herd member, you get that full access to that. And remember, you also want to download the Dynasty Nerds app because they're both in there. Check it out. Check out our friend Sleeper. Check out our DFS. Use that promo code NERDS.
Get your whole estate.
I am on the clock at 2:08, and I'm going to go with the wide receiver from South Carolina, Xavier Legette. 6'3", 227 pounds, late quote unquote breakout guy. So he hasn't really come on the scene until this last year at South Carolina, and it's when he finally actually got some opportunity. Everything I read about this dude is just work ethic, hard worker. His coach, Dow Loggins, I think his former OC, he compared him to Frank Gore. He worked with he had the opportunity to coach Frank Gore at one point, and he said he reminds him of Frank Gore in the terms of how he comes to work. He's first one in, last guy out kind of guy. But really impressive statistics this year. He had 1,255 yards receiving, which is 99th percentile in this class. 7 touchdowns. Quarterback rating when targeted, 127. Yards per route run, 3.15, which is extremely good. He's got great size. Like I said, 6'3", 227 pounds. Really good on special teams. I've read quite a bit about how teams are probably going to be targeting him later as a gunner. Like, he is extremely good at getting down the field and covering punts.
It's huge, too, for me, because then you're going to make an NFL roster and get a higher opportunity to succeed.
Exactly. We talk about that all the time with like late round dart kind of guys, is like find a guy that's going to make a roster and that has some good intangibles and attributes. Really good at the catch point, not overly fast, bigger guy, but man, when he gets thrown the ball, dude, he just finds a way, kind of like Roma Dunze earlier. He gets it. He makes plays.
I liked watching him. I haven't watched a ton, but yards after the catch seem to be pretty big for him.
Yeah.
That's a way that especially, once when you have that kind of build, able to break tackles.
Shed some of those
60th percentile in yards after catch in this class.
And he was 8th in the nation in receiving yards. So, I mean, he's way up the list.
I haven't watched any of them either, but his name has popped up on a lot, like, as I do my casual, like, research, like, reading, like, reports from guys that I trust.
Sure.
His name pops up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It is weird, though, that his career best in yards before the season, and this was his 5th year, was 167.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the part where it's like, why? Especially at South Carolina, it's Bama or Ohio State or some of these better receiver schools. Like, okay, I kind of get it, but South Carolina, they're begging for some guys at receiver. So that is one of the things that makes me go, why is that? What happened there? So we'll have to see. Excited to dig into him though.
All right, so with the 9th pick and my final pick in this draft, I'm going to go another Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, Texas. Listed at 6'1", 172 pounds. So you watch him on tape in his white uniform, and he looks really almost, just like sticks out there.
Yeah.
He's thin.
Devontae Smith style.
He is Devontae Smith. That is the vibes I was getting. I mean, obviously, he's not as polished and as good as him, or we would have been talking about him much earlier. But Xavier Worthy, I think, he was a name on the board, and I took him. I don't know much more than that.
He's got drops issues.
Okay,
he does. But
I did actually in the one film that I watched. I wasn't sure if it was a consistent thing, but I did see him drop some balls, and it was somewhat concerning.
That's one of the big things for him. One of the pluses for him was a guy that was producing like as a true freshman at Texas. So he's been doing it for a while as a true freshman. 981 yards and 12 touchdowns in his freshman campaign. So
he might be the fastest receiver in the draft.
He's got some wheels, but
those guys never succeed.
Sometimes Jalen Waddle's pretty good.
I mean, I was thinking of like a Deshaun Jackson type of guy he got downfield with ease. And stuff that I was looking at. And that was the thing. And I did in my brain, I was like, you know what? He does look very slight. I don't know that he's got the movement skills that a Devontae Smith does, so I'm not sure I'm going to love him. I was like, but in the back of my mind, I'm not going to write him off because I don't want another Tank Dell issue to kind of happen again this year.
Sure.
So we talked about honing processes and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give this guy a fair shake. I don't love the fact that he dropped some balls in the first, tape that I watched, and now you guys are talking about him dropping balls. So I will watch it through that lens because, I mean, that's just something that's you're not going to get on the field if you're doing that in the NFL consistently.
It's been a shtick.
Yeah, so we'll see if that's something that crops up more or pops up more, I guess, while I'm watching the tape.
At least for an undersized guy weight-wise, he does at least have the height.
Yeah, 6'1".
6'1", which is different than some of those other guys.
Sure, if he was 5'10", he would be 150 pounds instead of 171 pounds. Right, and this is all still early. Who knows what his actual measurements are going to come in? He does look thin, so I would expect him to come in thin, but who knows?
Yep.
My last pick, I'm taking Chase McCollum, running back out of Alabama, 5'11", about 212 pounds. Interesting runner. He was a high prospect. Tore up his knee at ACL tear, I think 2 years ago, in 2021 it was. Upright runner, one cut, let's go kind of guy. Okay speed, not overly shifty. For being 5'11", 212 pounds, not overly powerful, but can get it done. Gets off the line pretty well. Shown some good patience behind the line of scrimmage. Lets his blocks set up for himself. Again, he does a good burst, but not overly fast.
We're not talking about one of these Alabama guys that's going to be a potential first-round draft pick or anything crazy.
No,
like
not at
so
all.
He's a little bit farther back.
Not at all. His hands are – he's a capable pass catcher. Didn't run a whole bunch of routes from what I've seen. But definitely a nice runner. A high prospect, hurt his knee. Yep. Never really kind of had a breakout year there at Alabama.
Kind of just always stuck behind guys and just couldn't really ever break through.
So but a high prospect coming out. Yeah. So, and he put up some here and there good film.
Yeah.
But nothing that blows you away. And that's what worries me. It's like you're on this Alabama team and you just kind of you get what's there. There it is. You're not going to bust off a big threat. You're not juking anybody out of their shoes, but you're a solid running back.
Could this guy be a Brian Robinson type of guy who's got a little bit more in the NFL?
Not as big as Brian Robinson, though.
Okay.
He's just solid.
Okay.
He had a good game the other night.
He reminds me of just a really good backup running back in the NFL that when he gets the opportunity to play, he plays well, but never a guy that you're prioritizing, pushing.
Got to get him more carries.
Yeah.
Like a Jerome Ford, get in there.
Jerome Ford, Alexander Madison.
Yeah.
Those types of guys that they're steady. They're good. They're fine. But there's not Zach Moss. You
don't want to be your number one guy.
Right.
But for a couple games, going to get a couple carries here and there. If he's a starter, he's going to score enough points.
Yep.
Some games. But how good is his offensive line?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. All right. I'm up. The penultimate pick of this draft. I went with Marshawn Lloyd here. Marshawn Lloyd's a guy that I've been kind of interested in ever since he came out as a freshman. Didn't do anything his freshman year, but in year 2 at South Carolina, started to get a little bit of work. Year 3 got some more work, but he never had that big year. And it was interesting because he was a highly graded prospect, higher than typically you would think of at South Carolina, especially for a guy that didn't get a ton of work. Dealt with some injuries and was banged up here and there. Transferred to USC this year and still was working as part of a committee, but he put up on only 116 carries, put up 820 yards. That's good for 7.1 yards per carry, which is pretty darn good.
That's pretty good.
9 touchdowns in that. Showed himself to be capable in the receiving game as well. 230 yards in the receiving game. Kind of reminds me of a Doug Martin type, a little muscle hamster guy. He's not super tall, but plays really physical. And at 215, 220 pounds, he's gonna be a very physical guy, but he's only listed at like 5'9".
I always thought Doug Martin was overrated.
He had some really good seasons.
He did a couple.
Yeah,
about like 2.
I think he had that every other year thing going it for a while there. Great season, terrible season, great season, terrible season. But all that to be said, Marshawn Lloyd, I liked what I saw while watching him at USC, kind of watching him because I was watching Caleb Williams.
Right.
But there would be times where he would flash, and I was like, oh, he didn't. I thought he kind of died and went to the wayside, and no, he's still the thing. So excited to dig into his tape more as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I could see him being a guy that rises up for me too. He had that knee injury early in his career. It kind of set him back.
You know me and knee injuries.
I know. Did he have 2 knee injuries? I thought he did. I thought he got hurt and then got hurt again.
I wasn't saying. I think he might have out of high school and then.
I gotta look. I know, like before his freshman year, he got hurt.
And that's
'cause he was hyped up, and I liked him a lot. But yeah, he definitely flashed for me too. So.
Hey, Dynasty Nerds listeners, want to extend your fantasy football season? Jump into the FFPC Playoff Challenge and grab a chance to win up to $500,000. With 2 thrilling options, enter the $200 challenge for a $500,000 grand prize, or try the $35 challenge for a $100,000 grand prize. It's easy. Just pick 12 players, 1 from each playoff team, to fill your lineup of 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 4 flex, 1 kicker, and 1 defense. No draft, no salary cap. Remember, the contest locks at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, January 13th. So head to myffpc.com, use our special promo code NERDS, and receive $25 off your entry. Don't miss this chance to keep the fantasy football thrill alive. Go to myffpc.com and take your best shot at either the $100,000 or the massive $500,000 grand prize. Remember, use the promo code NERDS for $25 off.
I'm on the clock here at the last pick at 212, and I'm going to take JT Sanders, tight end from Texas. This is a tight end premium, and I think he has a chance to get first-round draft capital. So we could likely see him go much earlier than this if that happens, because he's a really good athlete, man. He can make people miss in the open field. You can line him up in line. He can block.
Sanders was somewhere else before Texas, right? Or no? Or am I thinking of Bell?
No, I don't think he was. I think he's always been at Texas.
It doesn't show him,
But just some, he's projected around like a 4.6. I saw sometimes that he's running the pass a 4.6 in the 40, 33.5-inch vertical. So solid athlete. So I think, like I said, I'm projecting first-round draft capital. That's where I've seen him get mocked a lot. I see Bowers and him typically as 1 and 2 tight ends in this class. So I took him here so we could talk about him, really.
He looked really athletic when I saw him play.
Yeah.
For being his size. Like, he looked pretty good with the ball in his hands as well.
Yeah, I don't think he's 6'4", 250. That's what I have here listed.
6'4", 250.
He's only 20 years old, so another young
made some big
prospect.
plays in the game last night as well against
and back-to-back years over 600 yards, which is pretty good for a tight end.
Yeah, so another good tight end.
Average 15 yards
here.
per catch. So
he's getting downfield a bit or quite a bit after the catch. Yep.
That's all I had, though.
Yeah, that's it, man. It sounds like we're winding it down.
Yeah, real exciting way to kick out the year as I slowly disappear into my 6 feet bed.
Can't wait to edit all your coughs out of this podcast.
Thank you so much. Can you edit my face out too, please?
I was going to say, can we do one of those blur things over here?
I would appreciate that, honestly. I'm trying to keep my wife intact. So, yeah, we're back. We're back next week. I think we're going to talk next week, 2024 kind of headlines.
Yeah.
And we're going to do our award show.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll do our some good buys and some good sells. So a couple good weeks coming up here. And don't forget, we got the Nerd Hurt shows coming out. If you want to join the Nerd Hurt, we talked about joining through Underdog or just get in there for the film room. It's the #1 tool right now you want to get into. You hear us talking about a lot about the film room here over the next months, all the way through the NFL draft. It's because it's one of the best tools you can get. I know tons of analysts in this industry that that are members of the Nerd Herd because they want to use our film room.
We have so much all 22. That's all we've focused on.
Yeah, so
for the most part,
hundreds and hundreds of games of all 22 film out there right now. So
and shout out to that team.
If you're looking for a place just to watch film on rookies, we have it broken down. Every play that player's in on, you can watch that.
You can watch that film. You can cut
I'll
it up. It's a quick little 5-minute, 10-minute kind of ordeal per player. It's great, man.
Yeah. The all 22 is a tiny bit longer than the broadcast, but it's worth it because you get to see all the angles, and especially when you get to these running backs. Like the broadcast does not do it justice. I need to see what's going on with that offense.
That's how you really can evaluate whether they're falling blocks.
Yes.
Seeing the whole
how kind of vision, what kind of vision they have. I swear you cannot do it well without all 22.
It's all about the angles, man.
Yep,
that's right.
It really is.
Shout out to Dynasty Sean. I told him I'd shout him out for beating me in Garrett's Northeast Ohio League.
Dynasty Sean's a good friend of mine. He's not actually Dynasty Sean, but when he beat us, he renamed himself.
Sean. I like Sean.
Leave us a review.
He's a good dude.
All right, adios.